Hi everyone, welcome all to online classes. Today we are going to start with the subject Applied Electronics and Instrumentation in BTech Agriculture 4th semester. So this is the teaching plan, that is the curriculum or the topics which we are going to cover in this particular subject. As from the name, that is, it is Applied Electronics and Instrumentation. Every topic is concerned to the electronics and instrumentation and control system. Okay, the first topic, that is electron energy bond in solid insulators, semiconductors and metals. That is, the first classification is conductors, semiconductors and metals. Now, after getting the difference of insulator, semiconductor and conductor, we come to focus more about the semiconductors, how the semiconductors are formed and what are the semiconductor materials representing in the periodic table. And after getting the detail of semiconductor, we are going to introduce two types of semiconductors. That is, one is p-type and second is n-type semiconductor. How the formation of p-type and how the formation of n-type semiconductors, and more in detail about their depletion width, formation of depletion width, what is the cut-in voltage, what is the forward biasing, what is the reverse biasing, and all that. And within that semiconductor, we are just going to study about the internal physics when you are just forming the p-type or n-type semiconductors, that is drift and diffusion current. Here the concept of current, that is new concept of current, is introduced, as we had seen that in conductors the current is only one of type, and that is through the electrons. But in case of semiconductor, the current is of two types. One is drift current, second is diffusion current. PN junction diode. Now, when you just form two type of semiconductors, and after that when you join these two semiconductors to each other, then that particular element is known as PN junction diode. VI characteristics of the diode, that is current voltage relationship of diode. And there are various diodes, and under the curriculum we are going to study that is Zener diode, Zener and breakdown VI characteristics of Zener diode. Now the second topic, that is diode circuits. After forming the diode, we are going to use the diode, PN junction diode, in various applications, and their circuitries are going to be studied out. The first circuit is rectifier circuit, half wave and full wave rectifier, bridge rectifier, and their comparison. Full wave rectifier with RC filter, Zener diode circuit, multiple diode circuits, photodiode and LED circuits. Third is clipper and clamper circuit. Basic mean of clipper and clamper is we are going to put the input through the any clipper circuit or clamper circuit. As from the word clipper means you are going to clip off the input signal by means of using the diode circuits, and clamper means you are going to raise the voltage level by using the means of clamper circuit through the for the input circuit, for the input quantity. Fourth is filter classification components, indicator, inductor, capacitor. Now that is diode. After diode fabrication, we can use the diode. After rectifier, we can use the diode as a filter also. And the filter, which means that in the process of filtration, various type of arrangements of the circuits can be done by using the three more components, that is inductor, capacitance and resistors. Some of the important filters are LC type filter, pi filter, active low pass and high pass filter, band pass filter, and so many filters are there. depending upon the different use. Fifth topic is NPN transistor configuration. That is, after completing the diode and their application, we move to the new topic, that is transistor. And transistor is the combination of three type of semiconductors, NPN or PNP. Either NPN, there are two type of combination. One is NPN combination and second is PNP combination, and the particular combination is known as transistor. So we are going to start with the transistor, their classification, PNP type and NPN type, and the physics, internal physics related to the transistor, and various parameters related to the transistor, that is alpha and beta relation, input and output characteristics of both NPN and PNP transistors, and their configuration for various applications. Now this transistor, that is NPN transistor and PNP transistor, after forming the new element, we are going to use that element as a application, and transistors are basically used in amplification. Oscillations, to produce oscillations, to produce various types of outputs. So the sixth topic is amplifier, general characteristics, classification, common emitter amplifier characteristics, common collector amplifier characteristics. Seventh topic is oscillator, that is frequency generator, LC oscillator. Various types of oscillators are available depending upon their configuration, circuit arrangements. First is known as LC oscillator, second is Armstrong oscillator, third is Hartley oscillator, fourth is Colpitts oscillator, and fifth is crystal oscillator. Different types of arrangements are done for producing different types of frequency signals. So these are known as the oscillators. Eighth is operational amplifier or op-amp. Op-amp are basically another type of circuit arrangement by using the diodes and transistors in addition with the basic components for performing various type of functions like addition, subtraction, division, calculating the log, and calculating the difference with the other components like logic gates and all. Okay, so they are known as operational amplifier. The ninth topic is, that is Boolean algebra, gates, logic circuits, Boolean expression. So Boolean algebra is basically related to the digital electronics, because here is one terminology or one topic, that is op-amp is used, and for understanding the op-amp you must have a knowledge of digital electronics and what are the gates. The gate logic circuits are produced through the gates. What are the various combinations we can go by forming through the gates and getting the output. And the Boolean algebra is related to the, that is 0 and 1, because we knew that computer understand the machine language that is in the form of 0 and 1, and the algebra related to that is known as Boolean algebra, and the Boolean expressions, and on the basis of that expressions we have to design the different types of gates for getting the output based on the various inputs. And after combining the gates, we are getting two type of circuits, that is sequential circuit. One is the sequential circuit and another one is the normal circuit. The sequential circuits are flip-flop types, and flip-flop is again based on the logic gates, and it is a part of digital electronics. Various type of flip-flops are there. SR flip-flop, these are the memory device. Basically these are the memory devices or memory circuits which are used for various purposes to get the output in respect to different inputs. SR flip-flop, JK flip-flop, T flip-flop, D flip-flop, and so on. By the use of gates, we are going to design the counters. Counters are two types: asynchronous and synchronous counters, decade counter, down counter, ring counter, Johnson counter. Now, The 12th topic is that is measurement, that is related to the instrumentation part. Instrumentation basically relate to the measurement. Instrument and classification of instruments, static and dynamic characteristic of the instrument, general measurements to the instrument, function elements of measurement instruments, basic methods of force measurement, torque measurement, pressure measurement. 14th is the strain gauge, metallic sensing elements, unbounded strain gauges, problem associated with the strain gauges installation, types of strain gauge. Now, we start with first topic, that is your difference between the conductor, semiconductors, and insulators. And before starting to that, first of all, we knew that every material is made up of a smallest particle known as electron, protons, and neutrons. So we start our topic from the electron, energy bonds in solids, insulators, semiconductors, and metals. Semiconductors, P and type, drift current, P-N junction type, VI characteristics of diode, Zener diode, Zener breakdown, and so on. So overview. First, we are going to start with the introduction. P-type and N-type semiconductor. What are diodes? Forward bias and reverse bias. What do you mean by reverse bias and forward biasing? What is the characteristic of ideal diode? What do you mean by the Shockley equation? The equation, Shockley equation is the equation basically given by the one scientist whose name is Shockley, and he gives the relationship between the voltage and current relationship, and that is in the diodes or in the semiconductor. IV characteristic, voltage current characteristic of the diode. Now introduction. Semiconductors are materials whose electrical properties lie between conductors and insulators. For example, silicon and germanium. That is, fourth group elements are basically known as the semiconductor materials, and their properties almost lie between the conductors and semiconductors. What are P-type and N-type semiconductor? Semiconductors are classified into P-type and N-type semiconductor. P-type, a P-type material is one in which holes are majority carriers, that is, they are positively charged materials. N-type, an N-type material is one in which electrons are majority charged carriers, that is, they are negatively charged materials. Diodes, electronics device created by bringing two together a P-type and N-type region within the same semiconductor lattice, used for rectifiers, LEDs, etc. So as you see through the diagram, that a P-type semiconductor, a N-type semiconductor, when they are diffused together to combine together to form a new device, then this is known as the diode or PN junction diode. In some of the book it is written PN junction diode, or some of the written books you just find it diodes. So in P-type, we knew that P-type is the semiconductor which contains the positive charge carriers as the majority charge carriers, and N-type is the semiconductor which contains the negative charge carriers as the majority charge carriers. So this is the symbolic representation of diode. A triangle, a line is drawn in front of the point, and two terminals are shown. So instead of using this diagram, we are going to represent this diagram in a symbolic form like this, and this symbol is worldwide used for representing the diode. It is represented by the following symbol, where the arrow indicates the direction of the positive current flow, where the top, that is the pointed point, is showing the direction of positive flow current. Basically, diode, when we just form the diode, the definition of diode say the diode is a device, is a semiconductor device which behaves like a valve. Diode is a semiconductor device which behaves like a valve. When you apply the voltage across this diode, that is, when you connect the positive terminal of the battery to the one side, that is, if you connect the positive terminal to the P side and negative terminal to the N side, then the current starts flowing through the diode, and having some variation in the flow of current, and we will see or discuss it later, the VI characteristic of the diode. But once you just change the polarity of the battery across the terminal of diode, you find that the current does not flow through the diode. That means in a unidirectional way or in a one way, the diode allows current to flow. In another way, it does not allow currents to flow. Due to this basic application of the diode, it is mostly used in all the semiconductor or electronic circuitries. Now the forward bias and reverse bias. What I had been discussed, that is when you just connecting the diode through the terminals of the battery. So when the current is flowing through the diode, it is known as forward biasing, and when the current is not flowing through the diode, it is known as the reverse biasing. So forward biasing, connecting positive of the diode to the positive of the supply, negative of the diode to the negative of the supply. Reverse bias, connecting positive of the diode to the negative of the supply and negative of the diode to the positive of the supply. This is the arrangement of the forward bias and the reverse bias, as you see from the diagram. And by observing the diagram, you are also see that in the forward bias, this shaded portion is smaller, while in the reverse bias, this shaded portion is wider. The basic reason is that the shaded portion basically is known as the depletion region, and depletion region is nothing. It shows that there is a no short of holes and electrons present in this particular region. And in forward case or forward bias case, this depletion width almost very short or very small. So the electrons from the p side can cross to the n side, and the hole from the n side cross to the p side, and the current starts flowing. But but in the case of reverse bias, this depletion width become more wider because all the majority charge minority charge carriers from p side attract towards the negative terminal of the battery, and they are unable to cross towards the all the positive charge carrier majority charge carriers are attracted towards the negative side, and all the majority charge carrier, that is electrons, attracted towards the positive terminal of the battery. And in this way, the majority charge carriers are not going to start crossing the barrier, and barrier size increases, and this depletion will increase more and more. So we can say that in the reverse bias, current will not start flowing. Characteristics of diode. Diode always conducts in one direction. Diodes always conduct current when forward bias. That is almost, it offers zero resistance. Diodes do not conduct when reverse bias. That is almost offered infinite resistance. Okay. This is the VI characteristic of ideal diode. If I am talking about for an ideal diode, and if I want to draw the graph, VI characteristic graph of an ideal diode, so you see that on the instant when you start applying the terminal in forward biasing, the current start increasing because it offers zero resistance. Okay, so current will increase on a very short moment, that is on the zero time. Momentarily it increase to the maximum. And if we change the reverse, or if we change the polarity of the diode or the board battery, then you see that when you increase the voltage through the battery, the current will not going to increase by a single unit. And as you go on increasing the voltage in reverse bias, the current will not going to increase because it offers the infinite resistance in the reverse biasing. So this is the VI characteristic of ideal diode. But in actual or in practice, this graph does not hold because practically the diode starts the current in forward bias, not like this. It increases exponentially, and in reverse bias, as you increase the voltage in reverse bias, the current will going to start, but after a certain period of applied voltage. When you increase the voltage level of its maximum, then the current start increasing in the reverse bias, and in that condition we can say the diode will not remain more diode. It will burn out or it will be not in use. Okay, because the basic parameter, basic characteristic of the diode is vanish out. So, and that particular potential is known as avalanche breakdown or avalanche voltage, where the diode will not behave like a diode. This is the practical VI characteristic of a diode. I had already told you that in the forward biasing, when you applied the do the forward biasing across the diode, the current will increase according to the exponential form. As you increase the voltage, you just reach to the knee voltage. Knee voltage is our cut-in voltage, is the voltage based on the which type of diode it is, that is on the germanium based diode or it is a silicon based diode, because the cut-in voltage for germanium based diode is 0.3 volt, and for cut-in voltage for silicon based diode is of 0.6 volt. Because cut-in voltage, till to cut-in voltage, the diode is not starting conducting in the forward bias case, but after the cut-in voltage, that is the depletion width, after crossing the depletion width, the current start increasing exponentially and increase to its maximum as you increase the voltage. But as you see that here we are increasing the current till to 0.6 volt and current start increasing momentarily, but in the reverse bias the current start increasing, but it is up to 100 volt. So after 100 volt, if current increases, then it is the case of burning out of diode. It is a case of burning out of diode. Rectification. Converting AC to DC is accomplished by the process of rectification. Two processes are used: half wave rectification, full wave rectification. Half wave rectification, that is by using the diode as a circuit element. You can use the diode for wave rectification. That is, if you want to convert alternating current into direct current, we use a diode as a rectifier. And the two types of rectifiers are there. One is half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier. Half wave rectifier basically rectifies the half wave of the pulsating AC. And as you see, still the pulses which are not fully rectified, and you are not getting a constant DC. So half wave rectifier, somewhere we just need the half wave rectifiers for various purposes. So definition of half wave rectifier: simplest process used to convert AC to DC. A diode is used to clip the input signal, excursion of one of polarity to zero polarity. This is the Shockley equation, that is the current voltage relationship given for a diode, because according to the Ohm's law for conductor, we had seen the V equals to IR is given by the ohms for conducting material. But for the semiconducting material, V equals to IR does not holds good. And particularly the equation for representing the current and voltage relationship is equals to ID equals to IS exponential e की power Vd upon neta Vt minus 1, where Vt is known as Kt by Q and K is known as the Boltzmann constant, T is known as the temperature, and Q is the electronic charge, and Vt is the thermal voltage, which is equals to near about 626 millivolt. Is is the saturation current, ID is the diode voltage, or Vd is the diode voltage, and neta is the emission coefficient, varies from 1 or 2. It's depending upon the case where some of the time we use neta as 1 and some of the time we use neta as 2. Thank you. Thank you for all. Thank you all for today's lecture. We will continue the same or from the onwards continuation of this Shockley equation in the next lecture. Hi everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Welcome all to for the online classes in analog electronics and instrumentation, BTech, agriculture, fourth semester. I'm Mukesh Bhardwaj presenting. According to the curriculum, we had completed the introduction of insulator, conductors, and semiconductors. And in semiconductors, we had started with diodes. We had studied about the diode circuits. What are the main applications of diode? In the last lecture, we had started with the basic applications of diode, as the diodes are using as a rectifying circuits. And we had completed with half wave rectifier and had started with full wave rectifier, and we had analyzed the half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier in different parameters like IRMS, VRMS, ripple factors, efficiency, uh, TUF, and many more parameters are there, and peak inverse voltage and so on. Now, with a short review of half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier, I'll continue my topic with bridge rectifier. So, full wave rectifier using transformer and two diodes. We had seen this circuitry on the last ones and discussed about the working, how the working theory related to this full wave rectifier. Now, I'll just move to the comparison chart of half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier on the basis of different parameters. The different parameters are the rectification efficiency. As we had seen that the rectification efficiency of half wave rectifier is 40.6%, whereas in full wave rectifier the efficiency is 81.2%. And the ripple factor in half wave rectifier is 1.21, whereas in full wave rectifier it has come out to be 0.482. TUF, that is transformer utilization factor, is 0.286, whereas in full wave rectifier it come out to be 0.692. Voltage regulation is good in half wave rectifier, better in full wave rectifier. Fundamental frequency of ripples equal to supply frequency, almost equal to supply frequency. Double of supply frequency, the 2F. Form factor, if I'm talking about the form factor, in case of half wave rectifier, it come out to be 1.57. In full wave rectifier, it come out to be 1.11. Peak factor 2, whereas in full wave rectifier, the peak factor come out to be 1.414. Number of diodes. In half wave rectifier, we use only one diode, that is single diode is used in half wave rectifier. In full wave rectifier, two diodes are used, but full wave or bridge rectifier, especially a specific name to the full wave rectifier, is also known as full bridge rectifier, which we will discuss it later on. In that case, we are going to use 4 diodes without center tapping. And if I'm talking about the peak inverse voltage, in half wave rectifier it is Vs, in full wave rectifier it is 2 Vs. DC output voltage IMRS or I maximum upon pi RL, and 2 upon pi RL I maximum. Okay. So this is the comparison chart where you just go through the various parameters for comparing the full wave rectifier and half wave rectifier. Now these are the key differences between half wave and full wave rectifiers. The first key difference is the significant key difference between half wave and full rectifier is efficiency. Half wave rectifier is a low efficiency rectifier, while the full wave is high efficiency rectifier. Thus, it is always better to use full wave when we are working on the highly efficient applications. The center tapping also differs in half wave and full wave rectifier. Half wave rectifier does not require center tapping of the secondary winding of the transformer, while full wave requires center tapping of secondary winding of the transformer. Third difference is the requirement of component varies in half wave and full wave rectifier. Full wave rectifier requires more electronic component as compared to half wave. Thus, full wave rectifier is costly as compared to half wave. Full wave requires double the number of diodes. The losses due to saturation of DC core in half wave and full wave rectifier also create the significant difference. The half wave possesses DC saturation of core, but this problem can be overcome in the full wave circuit. The full wave circuitry does not possess DC saturation of transformer core because the current in the secondary winding flows in two halves of secondary windings of the transformer and in the opposite direction. The conclusion: a rectifier is a crucial component in various electronic circuits. This is because most of the electronic circuits operate on low voltage DC and it's economical to supply power in the form of AC. Thus, we need a device which can convert AC to DC. Convert to AC to DC. A rectifier is a device which converts AC voltage into pulsating DC voltage. The pulsating DC voltage consists of AC ripples with DC voltage. Thus, it is called pulsating DC voltage. The half-wave rectifier converts the half cycle of AC into pulsating DC, while full wave converts full cycle into pulsating DC. Our selection for half wave and full wave rectifier should be based upon the requirements. If you require a low cost device and if you are compromise with efficiency, then use half wave. But if you are working on specific circuit designing which requires highly efficient conversion of AC to DC, then use full wave, keeping in mind its circuit complexity and high cost. Now we are moving towards the full wave rectifier working animation. This is the bridge rectifier. Basically, it is known as a bridge rectifier or full wave bridge rectifier. This is the circuit diagram. A circuit frequently used for electronic DC power supplies is full wave bridge rectifier. In full wave bridge rectifier, four diodes are used as shown in the figure. During the positive input half cycle, terminal of the secondary of the transformer is positive, while the another terminal is negative. In this situation, diodes, alternative diodes are designated as D1, D2, D3, and D4. So in this situation, diode D1 and D3, that is vertically opposite diodes, D1 and D3 are forward bias, that is in the on position, that is they conduct, whereas diode D2 and D4 are reverse bias, that is in the off position, they do not conduct. So a current flows along a direction which is shown in blue and the direction is shown in red. There will be a voltage drop across the load resistance during the negative input half cycle. The first terminal of the secondary of the transformer become positive while the secondary terminal becomes negative. Under this situation, diode D1, D2 and D4 are forward bias, that is on position, they conduct, whereas diode D1 and D3 are reverse bias, that is off position, they do not conduct. Now a current flows along the blue line as shown by dotted arrow in figure. The current produces a voltage drop across load resistance. It is obvious from the figure that current through load resistance RL is same in the direction AB during both half cycle of the input AC supply. The output waveforms are shown in the next figure. I'll show you. The waveform of the load current is essential the same as in the case of full wave rectifier. These are the some parameters, output formula. The average and the root mean square output voltage of the ideal single phase full wave rectifier can be calculated as VDC equals to, we have 2 Vp upon pi and Vrms equals to Vp upon root 2. The average and root mean square output voltage of an ideal single phase full wave rectifier can be calculated as VDC equals to V average 2 Vp upon pi, Vrms Vp upon root 2. Output voltage of the full wave rectifier animation. This is the output. Bridge rectifier make use of 4 diodes in a bridge arrangement to achieve full wave rectification. This is the circuit we had seen. This is the working diagram we had seen. Now, the advantage of bridge rectifier. What are the basic advantage of bridge rectifier? Instead of full wave rectifier, bridge rectifier is more advantageous than full wave rectifier than the half wave rectifier, because no center tap is required on a transformer. It is suitable for high voltage application. The most important advantage is that the bridge rectifier is suitable for high voltage application. Since two diodes are present in series in each conducting path, the peak inverse voltage is equally shared by the two diodes. Thus, it has less peak inverse voltage rating per diode. The current in both primary and secondary of the supply transformer flows for the entire AC cycle, and hence for given power output, the power transformer of small size may be used in comparison with that in the full wave rectifier. Now, if we just do the analysis for various parameters in bridge rectifier, we come to know that the IDC is come out to be 0.636 IM. DC voltage is come out to be 0.636 IM into RL, and IRMS is equals to IM upon pi, and the efficiency is near about the full wave rectifier, that is near equivalent to 81.2% when the diode resistance is negligible, and gamma is come out to be 0. Ripple factor, that is gamma, come out to be 0.48, and the TUF, transformer utilization factor, is equals to 0.812. So these are the some specifications and the rectifiers and the basic application of diode as an rectifier. We had completed all the parameters and three types of rectifier we had discussed. Now, diode as a filter. Now, as we had seen that some ripple factors are introduced in the output of the rectifiers, so we need to remove the ripples, and again to remove the ripples we need a filter circuit, and the filter circuit is again made or just comprised of diodes. So diode is the basic element in the filter. So if we filters are of various types: series inductor filter, series capacitor filter, and so on. First we discuss the series inductor filter. We have seen that the output of the rectifier is pulsating, that is, it has a DC value and some AC variations known as ripples. In most of the electronic circuits or devices, a very steady DC output is required. That is, a constant DC is required, not a pulsating DC. So, to bring out the constant or steady DC uh, can be achieved with the help of a device known as filter. Thus, a device that converts, so the definition of the filter is a device that converts the pulsating output of the rectifier into a steady DC level is known as filter. filter circuits commonly used, and there are some filter circuits are commonly used: series inductor filter, shunt capacitor filter, LC filter, and the last one is CLC or pi filter. Full wave rectifier with series inductor filter, that is, in when you just connect the filter circuit in cascading form, in cascade to the full wave rectifier, you will get a steady DC, that is non-pulsating DC or steady or constant DC. Okay, a full wave rectifier with series inductor, as I show you in the figure in the next slides. The inductor in series with load serves as a filter. The inductor offers a high impedance to AC. I just explain you the working right now. The diagram will be shown you later on. The inductor series with the load serves as a filter. The inductor offers high impedance to AC variations, that is a ripple current, and none to DC current, since the DC resistance of the large inductance L is very small. This action is based on the property of inductance to oppose any change of current that may flow through it. Uh, when the output current of the rectifier increases above a certain average value, the magnetic energy is stored in the inductor. This energy tends to decrease the sudden rise in the current. Moreover, when the output current decreases below the average value, the stored energy prevents the current from falling down too much. The current flowing in the full wave rectifier without filter is given by, we knew that, or we had discussed that, it is given by some formula, and it is equals to 2 Im upon pi minus 4 Im upon 3 pi cos 2 omega t minus 4 Im upon 15 pi cos 4 omega t. Since the impedance of inductor increases with frequency, hence there is a better filtering action for higher harmonic terms. As we had seen that the current output contains the some sine and cosine terms, and the higher harmonic terms should be neglecting the effect of the third and the higher terms. We have I is equals to 2 Im upon pi minus 4 Im upon 3 pi cos 2 omega t. You can see all the derivations in the books, which is already given, some standard books like Heat and Kamerle. You find all the derivation. And after doing the calculations, we come out to the ripple factor. When we just come out to calculate the ripple factor, we find that the ripple factor come out to be near about 0.236 RL upon omega L, which is very small, and the uh, ripple factor, and after if you talk about some gamma, it's come out to be 0.47, close to the value of 4.82 of the rectifier. That the inductor filter should be used when RL is constantly small. Inductor filter mainly used when the load resistance is constantly small, that is, effective filtering takes place when load current is high. So, on discussing the various parameter, we will discuss, or we will start in the next lecture discussing the various parameters of the filters, and the various filters need to be discussed by using the rectifier circuit in cascading. So, thank you to all of you. Welcome all to online classes. Today we are going to start with the topic, that is semiconductors, and the difference between the conductor, insulator, and semiconductor. Okay, semiconductor devices. First, before starting to the topic of semiconductor, first we go into the detail of internal physics related to the solid, and there is one more topic, that is energy gap in solids. As the all materials, wherever they are, solids, semiconductors, conductors, or insulators, they are categorized or differentiate on the basis of the energy gap. And so the energy gaps in the solid. In the free electron theory, a constant potential was assumed inside the solid. In reality, the presence of the positive ion cores give rise to a varying potential field. In a simple model, the potential as in figure first can be assumed. A is the lattice spacing and W is the width of the potential. If width tends to 0, we get delta functions. The traveling electron wave interacts with this periodic potential for a crystalline solid. The electron wave can be a Bragg diffracted, given by a Bragg's theory. So this is the internal physics, that how the particle behaves or electron behaves inside a material. The velocity of electrons for the above values of k are 0. These value of k and the corresponding E are forbidden in the solid. The waveform of the electron wave is two standing waves. The standing waves have a periodic variation in amplitude and hence the electron probability density in the crystal. The potential energy of the electron becomes a function of its position. Cannot be assumed to be constant and zero as was done in the free electron model. The magnitude of energy gap between two bands is the difference in the potential energy of two electron locations. The effective mass of the electron in a solid could be different from the rest mass. The effective mass can be larger or smaller than the rest mass. Collision with atoms increase the rest mass, while enhanced propagation in the crystal gives a reduced effective mass. From the concept of group velocity, the effective mass can be deduced. It is related to the curvature of the EK curve close to band edges. M can be, or effective mass can be, negative. Within a band, you just see the graph. If Fermi energy level lies in this region, then the conductivity would be high. This is the energy level diagram, or Fermi energy level shows that this, if the Fermi energy level is in this range, then the conductivity will be high. Now this is a comparison between the insulator, conductors and semiconductor. And before starting the comparison, we just come to understand about the semiconductor. So as by the figure you see that one band is known as the conduction band, second band is the valence band, and the gap in between these two bands is 2 to 3 electron volt. So this is known as the energy band diagram of semiconductor, and it is different for different semiconductor materials. So band gaps of some intrinsic semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductor means pure semiconductors. Material like silicon, germanium, gallium phosphate, gallium arsenide, indium antimony, cadmium S, zinc, tellurium. So the energy gap in electron volt for silicon is 1.1 electron volt. For germanium it is 0.67 electron volt, and for all others is already mentioned in the table. So energy band diagram at 0 degree Kelvin. Empty conduction band, full valence band. That means in the valence band, electrons or free electrons are there in the valence band. When we apply the potential across the semiconductor, these valence band electrons cross the energy gap and come to the empty conduction band. Okay. So either this can be done through the applied potential, or it can be achieved the conduction at the room temperature also. Okay. The elements of the fourth group column, that is carbon, silicon, germanium, antimony, bismuth, valence band full but no overlap of the valence and conduction band. Diamond, potential energy as a strong function of the position in the crystal. Band gap is 5.4 electron volt. Down the fourth column, the outermost orbit is farther away from the nucleus and less bound. The electron is less strong, a function of the position in the crystal, reducing band gap down the column. Energy band diagram for the insulator. As you see in the figure, the valence band and the conduction band and at the energy gap is greater than 3 electron volt in the insulator. So this energy gap is greater than 3 electron volt. That's why almost the electrons from the valence band cannot conduct to the conduction band until unless we are not providing the higher energy to them. If we provide the very high energy greater than 3 electron volt, then the electrons start moving, but at that time the insulator will burn out or it may destroy out. Ionization energy for dopants in silicon and germanium. Dopants are the impurities added in the pure semiconductors, and by adding the impurities in pure semiconductor, we are going to introduce the new type of semiconductor, which is known as extrinsic type semiconductor. And there are two type of extrinsic type semiconductor. One is N type, second is P type. So for N type element, P are phosphorus, arsenium, antimony, and these are the some ionization energy for the dopants in silicon germanium, as you see from the table, for N type and P type. This is a graph showing the impurity added in the intrinsic semiconductor. While you are adding the impurities in the semiconductor, so we are just saying that the resistivity and as the resistivity is depending on the temperature. So what about the resistivity when you are adding the impurities? Okay. Semiconductor device, choose a flat region where the conductivity does not change much with the temperature. Thermistor, for measuring temperature, maximum sensitivity is required. Now this is the effective mass concept. Since effective mass depends on the curvature of E and K plot, if the following will give, examine the effective mass of electron in two types, band first and second of energy band for one dimension crystal. So this is the effective mass curve for one dimension crystal. Semiconductors and energy bands. Classification of matter on the basis of semiconductor theory. In terms of their electrical properties, materials can be classified into three groups: conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. So first we learn the concept of insulator. An insulator is a material that does not conduct electrical current under normal conditions. Most good insulators are compounds rather than single element materials and have very high resistivities. Valence electrons are tightly bound to the atoms. Therefore, there are very few free electrons in an insulator. For example of insulators are rubber, plastic, glass, and quartz. Conductors. A conductor is a material that easily conducts electrical current. Most metals are good conductors. The best conductors are single element materials such as copper, silver, gold, and aluminum, which are characterized by atoms with only one valence electron very loosely bound to the atom. That means there's free electrons are almost available in the conductor, because free electrons conducts the electricity and they play a role in conducting the electricity. The loosely bound valence electrons become free electrons. Therefore, in a conductive material, the free electrons are valence electrons. Semiconductors. A semiconductor is a material that is between conductor and insulator. That is, semiconductor lies between the conductor and insulator. In its ability to conduct electrical current, a semiconductor in its pure intrinsic state is neither a good conductor nor a good insulator. Single element semiconductors are antimony, arsenic, boron, silicon, and germanium. Compound semiconductors such as gallium arsenide are also commonly used. The single element semiconductors are characterized by atoms with 4 valence electrons. Silicon is the most commonly used semiconductor. Now, energy band. Recall that the valence shell of an atom represent a band of energy levels, and that the valence electrons are confined to the band to that band. When electron acquires enough additional energy, it can leave the valence shell, become a free electron, and exist in what is known as the conduction band. The difference in energy between the valence band and the conduction band is called energy gap or band gap. This is the amount of energy that a valence electron must have in order to jump from the valence band to the conduction band. Once in conduction band, the electron is free to move throughout the material and is not tied to any given atom. Figure shows energy diagram for insulators, semiconductors, and conductors. For insulators, the gap can be crossed only when breakdown condition occur, as when a very high voltage is applied across the material. The band gap is insulator illustrated in figure for insulators. In semiconductors, the band gap is smaller, allowing an electron in the valence band to jump into the conduction band if it absorbs a photon. The band gap depends on the semiconductor material. This is the pictorial representation of energy band gap for insulators, semiconductors, and conductors. So in conductors, the conduction band and valence band overlap. As you see in the last third figure, the conduction band and valence band overlap to each other. There is no energy gap. This means the electrons in valence band move freely into the conduction band. So there are always electrons available as free electrons. And if you see in the insulator, that is in the figure first, the energy band gap is very much higher between the valence band and the conduction band. So a high amount of energy is required to jump the electron from valence band to the conduction band. Whereas in semiconductors, the energy band gap is comparatively smaller than the insulators. So little amount of energy is required to overcome or to conduct valence band electron to the conduction band. So this is known as the energy band diagram for three types of materials. Now, atomic structure of silicon and germanium. The atomic structure of silicon and germanium are compared in figure 4 below. The valence electrons in germanium are in the fourth shell, while those in silicon are in the third shell, closer to the nucleus. This means that the germanium valence electrons are at higher energy level than those in the silicon and therefore require a smaller amount of additional energy to escape from the atom. This property makes the germanium more unstable at high temperature. This is why silicon is more widely used as semiconductor material. Covalent bond. The sharing of bond is known as covalent bond. When atoms combine to form a solid crystalline material, they arrange themselves in an asymmetrical pattern. The atoms within the crystal structure are held together by covalent bonds, which are created by the interaction of valence electrons of the atoms. Silicon is a crystalline material. Figure shows below how each silicon atom positions itself with four adjacent atoms to form a silicon crystal. Covalent bonding in an intrinsic silicon crystal is shown in figure 5. An intrinsic crystal is one that has no impurities. Covalent bonding for germanium is similar because it has also four valence electrons. So these are the figures which are showing the covalent bonding and how the electrons are arranged in a crystal lattice. Now these are some review questions based on the above description or above knowledge. So what is the basic difference between conductor and insulator? You can easily answer the question. How do semiconductors differ from conductors and insulators? How many valence electrons does a conductor such as copper have? How many valence electrons does a semiconductor have? Name the three of the best conductive materials. What is the most widely used semiconductor material? Silicon is the most widely used semiconductor material. Why does a semiconductor have fewer free electrons than a conductor? You can easily answer. How are covalent bonds formed? How the covalent bonds form when two atoms are bound together. What do you mean by the term intrinsic? The term intrinsic means the pure form of semiconductor. What is crystal? We had seen the crystal lattice structure. Draw the diagram and write it down in a very smart way. What is crystal? How are covalent bond formed? How the covalent bond forms? By sharing of electrons, the covalent bond forms. So this is all about the difference between conductor, insulator and semiconductor, and these are the questions related to your insulator, conductors and semiconductors. Thank you. Thank you for this topic.